everybody, and welcome to our first live event. Here I am in my kitchen, and I thought it would be quite nice for you to see a kind of snippet of my life that you don't normally see. So thank you very much for joining me, and a big welcome to Ravenous Butterflies and to our live event. I would love to hear your thoughts and your giving me some feedback and egg me on. We're going to probably do about 30 minutes this time, so please do let me know how you feel things are going and what you'd like me to perhaps read or talk about. If you have any Q&As, any questions or anything at all, please do let me know. So I am now going to just fill you in really a little bit about me and who I am and where does this person come from and who is she and how come she stepped out from behind the camera, because believe you me, I probably spent this is my 11th year of doing this, and I've never ever wanted to come out from behind the camera because I've always been a bit of a technophobe. I don't like tech stuff, and I've sort of hidden away and kept myself apart from real life, I suppose. But now we're here in this moment and things are different, and I'd love to come out now and talk to you about how this all started. Where did it begin? Who is Lisa Azami? And who is this woman that makes up all these memes and these quotes and this poetry and does these live readings and things like that? So here we go. So I was born in the mid-60s in Sri Lanka, which was then Ceylon. My dad was a tea trader and taster. And so I grew up in a sort of very, I suppose you could say, idyllic sort of Indian Ocean world where I didn't wear any shoes, I didn't go to school, and I was basically sort of running around outside barefoot with other children and having a really lovely time and swimming and enjoying all those lovely kind of sensations and sort of beautiful smells and unctuousness of the tropics. And I have to say that I think that has been something that has really formed me, because I didn't have a conventional upbringing. I wasn't born in a village in the middle of Surrey or wherever, Somerset or wherever in the world, and I didn't stay in the same house all my life. And I didn't have that kind of stability, I suppose. But at the same time, I really benefited from being somebody who had this kind of wanderlust for finding new places and different things. And I think that being born in Sri Lanka and then moving at the age of 5 to East Africa was definitely a part of that. When I finally arrived in England, it was freezing cold, and I absolutely hated it. It was freezing cold. There was snow on the ground, it was winter, everything sort of smelt like frozen apples, and it was very different from the smell of sort of rotting fruit and insects the size of cats that used to, cockroaches that used to crawl along my ceiling and drop on the floor, and they'd literally wake you up because they were so loud. And the whirring of the fan above my bed, I remember very vividly, and the mosquito nets. Everything was very different when I got to England. England was cold, it was grey, there was snow, I didn't know anybody, I didn't have my nanny who used to look after me, so I was suddenly thrown into the arms of my mother and my father, which was, cold and chilly, a bit like England. Although Dad and I are very close now, it was a very strange time. I had my brother who was lovely, and he was just about almost 3 years younger than me. And I decided that, I had to kind of sink or swim. So I lost myself as I was growing up in art and in books and in stories. And I had this massively fertile imagination. And I think that I was always harking back to a world or a place where I could actually express myself and feel safe. And that safety was in my imagination and in my drawings and in my work, my paintings. And when I eventually learned to read at the age of 10, which was quite shocking really, because I remember my parents told me that this teacher turned up on my doorstep and said, hello, has Lisa missed a lot of school because she can't read, she cannot read. I used to hide myself away in the corner. This was like the kind of early 70s when everything was very experimental at schools. And I used to love picture books, and I used to look at these picture books like the Butterfly Board and all these other things. and I would lose myself in those pictures. And I think the teachers thought I could read because I made up the stories in my head that went with the pictures and kind of conned my way through it. So quickly, promptly learnt to read. And then obviously I kind of flew with it. So I was reading all sorts of books, from, I don't know, Oscar Wilde's Selfish Giant was one of my favourites, and anything which really had beautiful language. And I always kind of went for the ones with the gorgeous illustrations. So that's the beginning of who I am, really. And then I went on to uni. I did fine art, textiles, constructed textiles at Goldsmiths, graduated in the late 80s with lots of the other kind of young British artists, went off and taught and did some work in publishing, and then moved to New York. And I loved living in New York. So in the mid-90s, I was in New York, and I was there with my husband, and that was where I had my first child in 97. And it was fantastic, and I really enjoyed it, but I was very unwell. And I had sort of, throughout all of my, I don't know, I suppose it must have been various sort of emotional traumas that I had faced from leaving my kind of nanny, who was my mum really, in Sri Lanka when I was 5, and never really reconciling with that. And then having my son, and I was morbidly obese. I was double the weight I am now, and I had weight loss surgery in 2000, and I lost half my body weight. And that really, really set me on a path which made me feel like I had to sort of run to catch up. And in that running to catch up, I started to do things. I started painting again, which I hadn't done for a while because everything had left, or had kind of been left in stasis, I suppose, when I wasn't very well. And I was painting again. I started writing poetry. I had my son, and then 9/11 happened when we were living in New York, which my ex-husband, was supposed to be up there on the 101st floor, but thankfully he wasn't, because I found out I was pregnant with my second child the night before 9/11, so he was late to work. And then we came back to England in 2002, and I carried on. I mean, I had my second child. I then had to have knee surgery on both my knees. And I sort of, in all of that time, I found a huge amount of refuge in sort of the well-being benefits that art and literature gave me. I also had the wonderful, wonderful experience of having my daughter, who was my third child. And then the amazing thing of having my dog Cosmos. Now, those of you, and I know that I do bang on a bit about dogs, but those of you who have had pets obviously know, and they comment, you do comment about your animals, and we do treat them, don't we, like they are members of the family. And there is something, I've had cats, I used to have cats all my life, but there's something really special about having Cosmos, because he was with me the whole time. And he offered me unconditional love, and he was with me through all of the bad times and the good times. And he got me outside. He got me from being a bit of a bookworm and stuck inside with the kids and just doing my garden and things like that, to going outside into the real world. Finally, after I had got out of this wheelchair that I'd been in for 3 years before my knee operation, I could get out and walk. And like I said, I was sort of running to catch up, although I've never been a runner, and I would never be a runner, because I think I would just end up, if I ran, I would end up causing an earthquake wherever I went. But I absolutely loved going out every day for my walks in Richmond Park, which is a gorgeous park in London. It has thousands of deer, and now it's got millions of parakeets and all sorts of lovely wildlife. But in those days, I used to walk every day after dropping the children at school, and it really, really kind of made me connect with nature. And I've never lost that kind of vibration of connecting with the earth and with nature. So that has always been a massive influence with me as well. So as my children grew older, I carried on. I painted. I threw myself into all sorts of voluntary work. I was running craft groups and baking and all sorts of things with the kids, looked after children whose mothers were teachers after school, all sorts of things. and hosted lots of guests at my house. And we were very near Wimbledon tennis at the time, so I used to have lots and lots of wonderful guests who played tennis there, which was great fun. And then I realised that there was something missing, and I didn't know what it was. And I think I'd met my husband when we were 17, and I mean, although he was a very kind and lovely chap when I met him, we grew apart, and I decided that actually I don't know if I could do another 5 or 10 years in this situation. So I made a very difficult decision and decided that I was going to make it on my own, divorce. And it was incredibly hard because my parents had divorced when I was in my early 20s, and I sort of vowed that I would never do that. But sometimes I'm sure that many of you have come to that junction in life where you realize that actually there's no way that you can make this work, and sometimes the hardest decisions have to be made, and it's a real sacrifice. And there are many things which I regret about it, but I think it was, the only way that I could survive, and with my children too. So I decided to do that. During that time is when Ravenous Butterflies was born. Ravenous Butterflies was a huge, huge help for me. It really anchored me in a way and helped me in a way which I never thought that it would. And I certainly didn't think that Ravenous Butterflies would be the kind of ecosystem that it is today, with all of you guys coming and taking part in it, and being so interactive with it. I didn't realize that there were many people out there who had similar experiences to me, or who had other experiences but could identify with what I was trying to express. And I think it's been a huge revelation and a massive privilege, I think, to be able to connect with so many of you, and to be able to make your days and make your lives a little bit easier and lighter, I suppose, with everything that we do on Rav. So yes, Ravenous Butterflies kind of really kicked off in 2013. So yes, it's 11 years now, and there were sort of 20 people, 30 people, then there'd be 60 people, and I can remember saying to my mum, I've got 100 followers, or Mum, I've got 1,000 followers, and then it was 100,000, and so it grew, and it was just incredible to think. I suppose I'm really tech savvy, and I really had no clue. I was very naive, and I had no clue that, I didn't know what social media really was. I was scared of technology. I was always told I was rubbish at it. My ex-husband was he was somebody who wrote code for banks and things, so I never really had the confidence to delve into it, and always thought if I was going to press a button, it would be the button that was just going to kind of explode the world or something, or explode my computer. So for me, it's been incredible to think that I've gone from one person to almost 1.3 million people all over the world, reaching people who I've actually made real friends with in the States and other parts of the world, and in Europe, and all over the place. Argentina, I've had people come to stay, I've stayed with people, and it's been absolutely incredible. It's been such an amazing journey. And I'm now in my I always say that I'm living in a kind of Benjamin Button world, where I'm doing everything in reverse, because everything was sort of put on hold when I was married and bringing up the children, and now I'm in my late 50s. I'm doing all the things, I suppose, that I really ever wanted to do, and I'm hoping, like I said earlier, I'm sort of running to catch up, but I'm hoping that I'm going to get there, and everything that's in my head and all the things that I want to share with you are all going to be out in time before I pop my clogs, whenever that's going to be, and I don't actually, take that with me. I also wanted to say that I'm just so grateful that so many of you have been such loyal followers, and that you have been so interactive. I mean, sometimes I think life can be very, very tricky and very difficult. So it's really lovely to see that you're there through thick and thin, and that you still get a lot of benefit, hopefully, from things that I post. And as things change, the world's changing and technology is changing, I'm having to sort of try to keep up with that and trying to do these more interactive sessions with you. And like I said, coming out from behind the screen so that you actually get to meet me and know who I am, and on a more regular basis, and more of these live feeds and things that, more of these videos and poetry readings. I mean, if you like and enjoy my poetry readings, then your feedback is hugely welcome, because I will be doing more of them. And it's quite a solitary thing doing this on your own, and it's really, really hugely helpful if you could let me know what you would like me to read, and also if there's anything that you'd like, any of the artists that you'd like me to feature. I'm always willing to learn new stuff, so please, please do keep going and keep giving stuff to me, because it's, like I said, it is quite solitary, and I do really enjoy the interaction. So as I do more of this, I will really welcome that. So thank you. The other thing that I'm going to do, because I know a lot of you have never met me, and you don't really know my life at all, really, apart from what I've just told you in bits and pieces. When I do these live events, I'm gonna take you on a little magical mystery tour of my house. Now, this is my kitchen. This is part of my kitchen. So you can see my fridge and my cookery books and bits and bobs, my bin actually, which is over that direction. But yeah, I'm going to take you around my house and my garden as the weather gets better, and I'm going to show you around. So each time we do one of these live feeds, I'm going to take you into a different space, and hopefully you'll get a bigger picture of who I am and what I do. So I really think that's going to be a lovely thing to do. I can see that some of you have said that you've written on earlier posts. Kevin's just said he's written on an earlier post telling me what he'd like me to read and suggestions for art and writing. I would absolutely, absolutely look back at that and see what I can do for you, Kevin. And Richard says, greetings from South Korea. Well, Richard, you might be pleased to know that actually my book, An Apothecary of Art, has come out in South Korea in Korean. So I'm incredibly proud about that. That's a really cool thing, and I love the way that it looks graphically, and the writing is just so beautiful. So thank you for that comment. Also, I was thinking that maybe one day we might be able to do an event or something. I've got lots of ideas in my head. If there's anything that you would like to suggest that we could do as a group, or perhaps we could meet up, and also maybe do some readings together, or maybe perhaps even a workshop, that would be absolutely amazing, and I'm very up for that. I don't know whether you know, but I've moved back to the UK. So after I left New York in 2002, I moved back to London, and I live just outside of London now. And so I'm very happy to hear your thoughts, and if you'd like to organise a workshop, or we could have some special event, then or I could give a talk, then I'd be very happy to do that as well, because I think that there is so much to be gained from sharing art and literature, and it's a massive tool to help and aid mental health and well-being, and we've all been through it, I'm sure, one way or another in life, and certainly the last few years have been very trying and very testing for many of us, and especially with the pandemic and people's mental health spiking and not being great. So I think anything that I can do to help that, any suggestions that you have that could help me help you, then I'd be very happy to get on board and do that. I could talk to my publisher about any of that stuff, because any ideas that you have would be really welcome. I can't tell you exactly what it's called or what it is at the moment, but I do have my second book coming out in time for the holidays this year. So I worked very hard on that after Christmas with my assistant, with my lovely co-pilot, Marianne. And she's fantastic. She's been doing a huge amount of stuff behind the scenes for me, and including organising this, because I'm, as I said, not very tech savvy. So I will definitely keep you posted about the next book, and hope that you guys will enjoy that, as well as if any of you have my current book, An Apothecary of Art, to soothe your soul. Then if you don't, then please do go and find it, you can get it at any good bookshop or out on Amazon, or you can perhaps buy it with the next book when you want to buy your presents or gift for yourself coming up to the end of the year. So we've got a beautiful day here. It's 20 past 8. It's still very light. I'm hoping that maybe as the summer goes on and the days get slightly longer, I might be able to take this outside and you can see my garden. I've been planting it the last few days, so there's still masses to do, but I'm hoping that it's going to be a work in progress, a bit like a painting that you sort of go back to every now and again and just add a little bit of green here or a little bit of pink there, and just kind of, put a few highlights in and change the structure a bit. An ever evolving canvas, I think. I'm not sure that many of you know, but I lost my mum at the end of 2022, and after my divorce I moved into her house, so I've been sort of slowly trying to get it how I want it. There's still masses of things I'd like to do, but I'm absolutely loving being here. And I think for the first time in my certainly most recent, maybe perhaps 20 years, 30 years, I'm feeling that the best is yet to come. And I hope that those of you who are in my kind of age, I think that, 50, I'm nearly 60, but, I think that is probably the old 30 or 40. Well, I certainly think my age now is probably the old 40, because I remember when I was younger, going back and thinking, oh gosh, 40 is so old. And then when I was 50, I was thinking, oh, 50 is not that bad. And now I just think you are as young as you feel. And keeping young by doing this, and keeping young by having my kids around and their friends around, and being involved with the community, and being involved with you guys, and just being out there and learning and never giving up, and always just going for stuff and just getting things done and being productive and having a very kind of, positive outlook on life, even though we are bombarded left, right and centre by so much bad news and so much atrocity in the world. I think that it's really important to keep focused on who you are, be in the moment, and remember that it's never going to be better than it is today. And try not to worry about the small things, because in the end it's just not worth it. And I think that's probably what I've learned in my life. I do get anxious, we all do, and I do find that, I can spiral sometimes a little bit, but I can very quickly come back to myself and back into the present moment when I look at a beautiful painting, or I take myself to an exhibition or to a museum, or I go for a walk along the river, or I go and plant, like I did yesterday, plant a bunch of dahlias in the garden, or just some sweet peas or whatever it was I was planting yesterday, and getting my hands, my very, very unfeminine hands, dirty. And there's always things that can be done to make you feel better. And obviously keep looking at Ravenous Butterflies. So I'm just going to look, are there any questions that anybody wants to ask me? Is there anything anybody would like to ask me that they would like to know that I haven't covered so far in this short session? And I'm very happy to answer any questions if you'd like to ask something now. We'll have a little Q&A, and if you'd like to ask me something, please pop it into the feed. Perhaps think about something, and while you're doing that, I'll read you a little poem, which is one of my favourites, which I think is very appropriate considering that what we've just been talking about. It's the Wendell Berry poem that I love, and I've made a couple of recordings of, The Peace of Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above my day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world, and am free. So Kevin's asking me about Sri Lanka. I was there sorry, you can hear the planes. I was there in Sri Lanka from the mid-60s until about 1971, and then came back to the UK. So I was about 5 when I went to Malawi, and then I came back only for a few months, and then I came back to the UK when I was about 5, just over 5. So yeah, I went back. I've been back a couple of times, and I really want to take my children back there actually, because I absolutely love it, and you can't explain it. You can't explain what it's like until you go and you get off the plane, and you can almost cut through the sort of pungent humidity with a knife, because it's so thick with sensory overload. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic if you've ever been. Yeah, Anne just says she loves that poem. I absolutely love it. And she's asking me what the title of my first book is. So my first book is An Apothecary of Art to Soothe Your Soul, and it is available on Amazon or any good bookstore, depending on where you live in the world. Barnes and Noble, Waterstones. It's available all over the world, so you can find it. This is a really beaten up copy which I have here, which I've just cut out a bit saying Lisa's copy, which is there. But that's my book, and it's actually lovely. So it's very well worth having just by the side of the bed if you want to, just dive into it any time where you need a little bit of peace, or just take a deep breath and just and enjoy the moment and the stillness, because you'll certainly get some calm and peace when you look at and open the book. So Laura Daub, who's amazing, she's an amazing, she reads tea leaves and all sorts of things, fantastic artist, and some of you might know her work because I often post it. It's really beautiful. And she's saying thank you for all the connections that we've made. And I think we do. I mean, we do, like I said, this is almost like a little mini planet, and a lot of us have made good friends here on Ravenous Butterflies. Takes a lot of policing, and there's a lot of trolls out there, and I'm really sorry about that. And Marianne and I spend a lot of our time blocking people, and I'm really sorry about that, but there's not much we can do, I'm afraid. I think a lot of them are bots, but we try and sort of get over that and move on to the good stuff very quickly. So hopefully that's not too much of a nightmare for you. Kevin's asking me about my refrigerator. If I go that way, it's not old, it's a Smeg, and it's a retro fridge. I bought it this year actually, and I love it because I'm not really a modern kind of girl. As you can tell, my kitchen is full of all sorts of bits and bobs. So yeah, I love my Smeg fridge. So there we go. So if there's anything else that anybody wants to ask, we've got a couple of minutes left. Conchetta's asking, why did you start the reels? I started the reels because I think we were, in this world of technology, we have to keep up with what people want, and Meta is, I suppose, trying to make us do things which are a little bit more interactive. So I started doing the reels because of that, and also just to explore ideas, I suppose. It's very much trial and error. As I said, I'm not an expert, but I am dropping stuff and taking stuff. There's some good stuff about it, there's some stuff I don't like about it, but we're trying to make things as interesting as we possibly can for everybody. So maybe perhaps some people don't like them, some people really love them and can identify with them. So I'm going to kind of keep going with bits and pieces, but change things up a bit. So I hope that answers your question. Are there any more questions? We've got about a minute to go, and then I'm going to call it an evening for this session. But if you'd like me to do this again, please do let me know, because if you yeah, it'd be lovely. I'd love to do it, and if you'd like me to do it again, then I'd be more than happy to do that. And yeah, keep the comments coming, keep the ideas flowing, and that gives me a little bit of inspiration, because it is quite lonely here behind the controls. and it is really lovely to have some kind of real-time interaction with you guys, and I think that it's a good thing, and long may it continue. And I hope that it's going to grow in a very positive, loving and caring way, and that we can continue to do this, and that we can keep meeting like this occasionally, maybe every couple of weeks, and I will continue to kind of play things around a bit, mash things up a bit, do some little individual live feeds without giving you any notice, and more videos of places. I'm going up to London tomorrow to the museum, to some art galleries, so I'll do some little bits and pieces up there, because I think it's good to learn about new places and new things. So I hope that you're going to enjoy that. And I'm just going to carry on being me. And as Miranda says, thank you for being you. I'm going to carry on being me, 100% me, 150% me, and keep going. And I hope that we can meet again soon. So thank you so much for joining me. As I said, if you'd like to watch this again, I think it's going to be on Facebook. You can re-watch it. And next time I'll tell you a few more things about my life, and perhaps you could share some stuff about yours, and we can talk about these things together. So thank you so much, and have a lovely rest of your evening. And I'm gonna clock off now and give you a big kiss and say good night. Thank you so much. Bye bye.